And we're on air. The Stay Blessed podcast number 1008. With me, with your host, Dare to Do Motivation. This is a late night episode tonight. I'm recording this at 1 o'clock in the morning, my local time, GMT. And welcome all my listeners. I've seen that I have 1,700 subscribers right now. And thank you for following me on this journey. It will be a great long journey, I promise you. We will have lots of guests. I think this may be one of the last episodes where I am on my own, where I don't have a conversation partner. Actually, I already have my first guest lined up for one of the next episodes. It's a dear friend of mine. He's also a Nigerian entrepreneur. And we will be talking about spiritual power, spiritual healing. What motivates us to get up in the morning. What is important in life, and yeah, we'll see where the conversation will go from there. So yeah, welcome. Thank you very much for tuning in to listening to this podcast, the Stay Blessed podcast. And let me know in the comments how you have received this podcast series so far and what you are looking forward to. I can tell you as much. This podcast will change a lot. As always, I don't edit these podcasts, so whatever mistakes I do, whatever noises you hear in the podcast, it's all natural. So don't be confused if I grab a drink or eat a piece of orange like I'm doing right now. I'm actually having orange dipped in salt and washing it down with tequila. But not any tequila. It's Casamigos Tequila from George Clooney. And I bought this tequila, I saw it in the store a couple of weeks ago. And it's quite expensive. It was about 70 euros. 70 euros for a bottle of tequila is expensive. But it's a really, really nice tequila. I can only recommend it. It's Casamigos. It's from George Clooney, but it's a proper tequila from Mexico. And it's really nice. And you can drink it with the way I drink it the West Coast way. So you put a couple of ice cubes in it and you just nip it. You nip the tequila, it's really nice. And I accompany it with some slices of orange dipped in salt. Oh yeah, it's really nice. So last time we talked about, I think the last two episodes, we talked about New Year resolutions, what your plans are for the new year, what your goals are, and I think you made me a promise that you will try and get a small result this year, one small win in your life, no matter what it is. And you can do it. So I hope you've already started investing this 1 hour time of your week into one of your goals. And if you haven't, then now is the time to start. So no matter what it is, if it's just learning an instrument, learning a new language or a new skill, you may think 1 hour in a week or 20 minutes a day isn't much. But I tell you what, if you keep going for 1 year, you will be a whole different person. You'll be on another level. So yeah, definitely, if you're still thinking about it, go for it. So yeah, let's talk about Joe Rogan. You know, I love the Joe Rogan podcast. I listen to a lot of his episodes, and since half a year now, I think they're exclusively on Spotify instead of on YouTube. And I think he made the switch because he thought that YouTube was kind of telling him what to do and what not to do, what guests to invite and whom not to invite. They were censoring him in some kind of way. And of course, Spotify made him a great deal. I think he's getting paid $100 million for a couple of years, which is a great deal for a podcast. But I feel since he's been on Spotify, his conversations with his guests have been so much more interesting. I don't know why. Maybe it is because before on YouTube I used to watch him. And now on Spotify you can also watch his videos, but I just listen when I'm driving the car, or usually when I'm driving. I love to listen Joe Rogan when I'm driving. And it's been so much more interesting for me since I'm only listening and not watching. And I feel like he's become more bold. So the guests he's had in the last couple of weeks, months, and what they were talking about was so interesting. He had a couple of scientists on talking about the coronavirus, the COVID pandemic, and how it has been mismanaged from several governments in the world, and that something is wrong, that something can't be right. And he had some, I think 2 weeks ago, he had a very interesting guy from a guy who's monitoring Google. He's copying their algorithms and checking if everything's quite legal what they're doing. And he said some very interesting guests, guests that wouldn't get a sniff into mainstream media. And I've been really impressed. I mean, I've been enjoying Joe Rogan podcasts for years now, and there have been some episodes which I didn't enjoy, but most of the time I really like his content. But in the last couple of weeks, he's had some amazing guests, really interesting guests. And those people, they let you get a view on the stories which you won't get in mainstream media. Let's say it how it is. You won't get it in mainstream media. Where I'm from, Austria, in mainstream media, it's all very, it's everything online, so on point, so you do get different ideas about topics, but it's not really mainstream. And the interviews and people, show hosts and news anchors have with scientists and people commenting on various, or politicians commenting on various aspects, it's very artificial, it's unreal, it's a bit embarrassing. And so people have been wondering why Joe Rogan has gotten so much attention. Why? I mean, I think he's got, for every episode, 11 million people listen to his episodes, per episode. That's incredible, really. But it's natural, because he has natural conversations with people. It's not forced, it's not artificial. People like to listen to it. And he listens to people from people from the left, people from the right. He listens to different opinions, and it's quite refreshing, actually. And now the other day I read an article on The Guardian, and you may have heard about Neil Young protesting about Joe Rogan because he apparently is misinforming the public about COVID-19. And so Neil Young said he would take all of his music out of Spotify if they wouldn't let go Joe Rogan. But of course, in this day and age, Neil Young is nothing compared to Joe Rogan. I mean, he's got 11 million listeners. Excuse me. He's got 11 million listeners per episode, Joe Rogan. And Neil Young, I'm sure there are a couple of million Neil Young fans. But it's just weird that Neil Young would say, hey, take off Joe Rogan because he's been misinforming the public over COVID-19, or I will pull my music. I mean, first of all, it doesn't really concern you. It's none of your business what Joe Rogan does. you're Neil Young. If you want to write new songs, and you can talk about your ideas. And besides, I've been listening to a lot of Joe Rogan podcasts, especially regarding COVID-19. And I've never heard Joe Rogan misinforming the public about COVID-19. I challenge you, or I challenge Neil Young or whoever might be listening, to show me or play me the clip where Joe Rogan misinforms the public about COVID-19. He never does. And maybe you might not agree with everything his guests say, but you don't have to. It's not a political show. It's not about agreeing or not agreeing. It's about listening. Listening, and you've got your own brain. You can make your own thoughts about these topics. And then I read this Guardian article in a newspaper. It says, Joe Rogan has addressed controversy over his Spotify podcast hours after the streaming service announced a plan to tackle the spread of COVID-19 misinformation. In a 10-minute video posted to Instagram on Sunday night, the comedian and host pledged to try harder to get people with differing opinions on and do my best to make sure I've researched these topics. A lot of people have a distorted perception of what I do, he said. This is true. A lot of people have a distorted perception of what I do. I hear a lot of people critique Joe Rogan, and they don't even listen to the show. They just see who's on his show, and they judge. They judge by, I know this person, and this person isn't in line with my ideas. This person doesn't represent my ideas. And if you would actually listen to his podcasts, I mean, his guests can say what they want. They're his guests. But he's never informed or misinformed anyone about COVID-19. He's just a curious person trying to find out what's best for him, for his family. And that's the way I see it. The article goes on. Rogan framed his podcast, which reaches an estimated 11 million listeners per episode, as just conversations, which started off as having fun and talking. And yeah, I've been listening to Joe Rogan for years now, and they are just conversations. But of course, the more famous he became, the more prolific he became. Of course, more famous people wanted to have a sniff into his podcast, and he got the possibility to talk to very interesting people, like really high politicians, actors, artists, martial artists. So you have really interesting conversations on the Joe Rogan show. But it is just conversation. So, I mean, every person naturally tends to lean into one direction or another. But it is his right as a Spotify podcast, or just as a podcast. I mean, he's not an official government spokesperson. He's not even an official government news website anchorman. He's just a guy who likes having conversations with people. And he has become so big, so blown up, that he gets to talk to a lot of celebrities, and now people are paying attention. And because so many 11 million listeners worldwide listen to him every episode. Of course, you get some people or some organizations who don't want this to be spreaded, even if they're just conversations. So I don't understand why you want to repress conversations if it's just conversations. I mean, I'm sure you listening, you have had conversation with your friends, with your family, with your mates, and they're just conversations. But after some time, these conversations get politicized, or someone raises an concern about some political views, but they're just conversations. So, and that's why we love to listen to the Joe Rogan show, because you have to talk about sensitive. I mean, it's normal if you meet with your friends or anyone, you talk and you have chit chat. But after some time, you get into some serious conversations. And why shouldn't you be able to talk about conversations? Why shouldn't you be able to talk about rather every topic you want, no matter how sensitive it is? I'm a free human being. Joe Rogan is a free human being. No matter if he's got a podcast on Spotify or not, he's a free human being. And he can choose to talk about anything with anyone. If you don't like it, don't listen. It's easy as that. So why are we trying to silence people? Would you like someone to while you're having conversation with your uncle or with your mother, would you like someone to come, hey, you can't talk about this, or don't talk about this, and rather have different opinions? It's none of your business. I'm having a conversation. It's just that Joe Rogan chose to make his conversations public, and it is his right, and he can invite to the podcast whoever he wants. So, and the thing is, he had an anchorman from CNN on a couple of months ago, and there was this time where Joe Rogan said he had COVID-19 and he had successfully beat the virus with a mix of medicines which his doctor subscribed him. One of them was ivermectin, and CNN ridiculed him for that. And he had an anchorman on from CNN, and Joe Rogan confronted him with why CNN ridiculed him for stating that he had taken ivermectin. Not only ivermectin, but other medicines as well. And Joe Rogan, basically, the anchorman of CNN, he didn't have an answer. He couldn't say anything. So I think it's not, I'm pretty sure that Joe Rogan has invited a lot of people from maybe Big Pharma, or from the political left. I mean, I don't give a toss about political left or right. I'm really an apolitical person, but I'm sure he has invited people from Big Pharma, from the political left, from the big news networks, and I'm pretty sure that they wouldn't want to be on a live recording podcast for 3 or 4 hours with a guy who smokes marijuana, who drinks whiskey, who smokes cigars, who swears, who doesn't really give a toss about what he's saying or who he is offending. And I'm pretty sure these, let's say, establishment people would feel pretty uncomfortable being there for 3-4 hours, having to be real and to be talking honestly about various things that are going on in this world today. So, I mean, for instance, Neil Young, why don't you go into the Joe Rogan podcast? I'm sure if you would write to him, Joe Rogan would gladly accept you. It will be a hell of a podcast. And just tell him why you think that he should be removed from Spotify. It's just, how should I say, it's political blackmail. Neil Young coming out of nothing after all these years saying, hey, I'm Neil Young, if you don't pull Joe Rogan from Spotify, I will pull all of my music. I mean, it's ridiculous. My point of view, it's really ridiculous. Excuse me, I'm having another slice of orange with salt and tequila. As I said, this is a late night show from the STAAAAY Blessed podcast. So yeah, I've been really impressed by this tequila from Casamigos. Let's say what the internet says about Casamigos Tequila. See, that's another thing I've been noticing lately. I live in Austria, but I love to have my information in English, my websites and whatever in English. And before, if you would Google a subject, you would get the results in English. But now, as I'm living in Austria, where the language we speak is German, since a couple of months now, it's predominantly German results I get, as if Google wants to tell me that I want to have the German result rather than the English one. So let's go to Wikipedia. It says Casamigos is a tequila company co-founded by American actor George Clooney and owned by Diageo since 2017. The label was launched in 2013 by Clooney, nightlife entrepreneur Rand Gerber, and property developer Mike Meldman. Friends Gerber and Clooney started the company intending to make tequila according to their personal tastes and for their personal use, with no intent of taking the company public. The name Casamigos comes from the Spanish casa, house, and amigos, friends, thus House of Friends. It was purchased in June 2017 by the multinational beverage company Diageo for $700 million, plus up to a further $300 million based on the brand's performance. The purchase equated to Diageo paying almost $500 a bottle. So first of all, congratulations to George Clooney and his mate for such an amazing business deal. I mean, imagine starting a tequila with, they're Americans. They just take their private jet to Mexico. They start a small tequila company, maybe pay off the cartel so they leave them alone. And they just make tequila with some old Mexican dudes. And then the tequila becomes really good. And a multinational beverage company pays him $700 million plus up to a further $300 million. So basically, you get paid $1 billion for your tequila. Congratulations to George Clooney and his mates. And yeah, let me get the bottle. Well, hang on a sec. So yeah, I've got the Anejo, which I think is the more expensive one. Tequila 100% agave azul from Jalisco, Mexico. And it even says the bottle number. So every bottle gets a number. It's 21118. And it says Casamigos Tequila exclusivo George Clooney, Randa Gerber or Arder. I can't read it. But yeah, I'm pretty impressed by this tequila. And by no means I'm a tequila connoisseur, let me tell you that. It's really nice. So Casamigos Tequila, I'm not really affiliated. I don't think that George Clooney would pay me for any advert if he's already gotten paid $1 billion for this tequila. But I guess if they paid him off, he's not involved. He's not really involved anymore. It just means he created this and he sold it. Maybe the recipe has to say the same, or it's in their contract that a couple of times a year George Clooney has to make sure that the tequila is still after his taste. So yeah. I don't know, let me know in the comments what you like to drink, where you are from. I mean, I know everyone knows Russians, Polish, they like to drink vodka. The Irish love their whiskey. But I've got a lot of viewers from India. So if you're from India or from Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, if you're not, strictly a religious Muslim and you drink alcohol, what kind of hard liquor do you drink in India? Is there any self-made drinks in India which you drink? That would really interest me. Something like a tequila or a vodka or a whiskey. So yeah, just let me know in the comments. So right now it is the 1st of February. And in my country, in Austria, the vaccine mandate has officially begun. Meaning that if you are not vaccinated, you are first of all not allowed into any shops or restaurants or cafes. And second of all, the police can basically stop you on the street and fine you for not being vaccinated. Even if you are healthy, even if you have had COVID 6 months ago, you still need to be vaccinated. Otherwise, the police can stop you and fine you. And the weird thing is, if you protest against this fine, so you can go to court and say, no, I don't realize why I should be fined for not being vaccinated, because it is illogical or it doesn't make sense. In case you protest, your fine will get even bigger if you lose. But yeah, I think they're doing this to intimidate people, or I don't know what deals the government has with the pharma industry. But I've had COVID twice. The first time I didn't even notice. I only found out because I did an antibody test. So I had antibodies in my blood. And then after 3 months, I made another antibody test and I had more antibodies. And then half a year later, I got COVID. It was actually 2 months ago. And I was ill for 3 days. It wasn't bad. It was like a flu. I was coughing a bit and didn't feel so great. But after a week, I was back to normal again. And yeah, so if like me, I had COVID in December, so I am exempt from the vaccine mandate for 6 months, so until the 7th of May. And yeah, let me know what you think about this. Do you have things like that in your country? Do you have to get a vaccine? Have you been vaccinated? Have you had COVID-19? Let me know in the comments. This subject really interests me. Like for me, I thought about getting a vaccine, but if you've had COVID, first of all, the doctors here tell you it's dangerous to get the vaccine within the first 2 months after you've had COVID, because your antibodies are so high that if you get the vaccination, it can interfere with your natural, I don't know what they call it, but it's not recommended. So, and then I hear scientists who say that if you've had COVID, if you have the antibodies, nobody really knows how long they last, and it could be that they last for years. And now again, I'm telling you, like Joe Rogan, I'm not misinforming anyone. I'm just saying what I've read, what I've heard, and we're talking about this. And it's weird that everyone has to state that they're not a doctor, that they don't give medical advice, and we're just talking about things. So yeah, I thought about getting the shot because everyone in my family has gotten the shot. And by the way, no one in my family has had any negative things happening to them after the vaccine. I mean, my sister's husband was in bed with fever for 2 or 3 days, but nothing really serious happened. So I don't know anyone who has had any bad things happen to them because of the vaccine. On the other way, I don't know anyone who has had anything, who has had COVID-19 and who has been close to death or something like that. So I know a lot of people say, don't get the vaccination, it's dangerous. I don't know anyone who has suffered anything bad from the vaccination, to be honest. And I wouldn't be scared of getting vaccinated, I'm telling you honestly. But at the same time, I don't know anyone who died of COVID or has been in hospital because of COVID. I don't know anyone. And it's not that I don't take the vaccine because I wouldn't take the vaccine not because I think it's bad for me, but I just think there's no need for me to take it. I've got antibodies. I've had it twice. It hasn't been really bad. I mean, I've had worse flus. I've had at least half a dozen worse flus than this COVID thing. So I'm sure there are some older people whom the vaccine helps and who can be in danger. But yeah, I mean, so many people die every year of the flu. If your immune system is weak, or if you've got other diseases, if you're overweight, things like that can be dangerous. And so is COVID. And I don't want to politicize this COVID thing. I just think that everyone should be able to voice their opinion without getting put into a corner. So yeah, vaccine, COVID, George Clooney, tequila, Joe Rogan. That was the podcast for today. Dare to Do Motivation, Stay Blessed podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, I think I've got my first guest lined up soon. And I'm looking forward to having a lot of interesting conversations with different people all across the spectrum. And I plan on keeping it audio strictly, so without video. I hope you don't mind. But I know from my own experience that if I listen to podcasts rather than watching and listening, I enjoy them more. So yeah. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks to everyone who stayed until the end. And yeah, this was the Stay Blessed podcast. Thank you so much for watching. And stay blessed.